gamers, Ranger Tony here with another Pathfinder Kingmaker build video. So as you may know if you've viewed a lot of my videos on my channel, or you may have even derived from my name, I like archers. In real life I have several bows and I'm a fairly good shot, and in computer role-playing games in particular I definitely like playing archers, even if they are often underrepresented or underpowered in a lot of games because they usually have less available skills than a melee build. Thankfully, Pathfinder Kingmaker allows a lot of choices for archery and ranged feats. So today I'm going to show you a simple build that will use practically all of the feats available. You can use a lot of different weapons for this type of build. You could use light and heavy crossbows, you could use slings, sling staffs, darts and javelins for most of this, but really the best option for an archer is a longbow, particularly a composite longbow, so that you can get the strength bonus to your damage, and you get 1.5 times your strength rounded down. Likewise, there are multiple classes that we could pick for this build of an archer. Of course, all of the rangers make good archers, and you start with a longbow, and if you go down you get bonus archery skills if you take the archery combat style. See my video here, or up there, for my archery ranger build. There's also other archetypes that work well for rangers. The paladins, divine hunters, the magus, eldritch archers, even the inquisitor, divine hunter, not divine hunter, the huntsmaster, are all good options that you could look at. For this build though, I'm going to use a default fighter, and the advantage of this is that you get the most feats that you can take, which means that you can basically take all of the archery feats and all of the feats that will give you bonuses to damage and all of that sort of thing. So let's start the build. Race here is not really an issue. This is one of the times that I do not have any preference to take human, because fighters get so many feats that there's no real disadvantage to not having that extra feat at first level. Basically, you get, as a minimum for a fighter, you will get 2 feats at first level, 3 if you're human, and then 1 feat every other level after that. So you can just take feat after feat after feat, and get everything that you need. It's just a matter of working out what order you want to get them in. So the only disadvantage would be if you took one of the small races, gnomes or halflings, because they're going to then use the smaller version of the longbow, which will only do 1 to 6 points of damage, rather than the 1 to 8 points of damage that a longbow would normally do. And the small races get a penalty to strength initially. But apart from that, any race will work well for this. You don't have to have any particular special requirements. You don't have to have any particular weapons that, racial weapons or anything like that. It'll work well. So I'm going to pick half-orc for something different. I've already picked a half-orc portrait. I'm not going to worry too much about the general look of the character. So we're going to pick the fighter, and as we can see here, you get fighter feats at all of these levels, and then later on we'll see at all of these odd number levels we also get our standard feats as well, meaning that at the end we've got 21 feats, 20 feats plus an extra one, and then we get some other bonuses as well. The bravery gives them bonus to will saves, which goes up over time. That's good. The armor training gives them bonuses to their armor, so that they can use more dexterity bonus on armor. So if an armor normally says that it allows 3 points of dexterity, you'll be able to use 4, and then 5, and then 6, and then 7, and then whatever. So this is actually really good for this build, because this is going to be a dex-based build, being an archer. And then we get weapon training, and this basically just gives us a +1 bonus to attack and +2 bonus to damage. And so that's going to then improve as we go along, so we can get more bonuses to damage there. So we're going to put all of that into our longbow. So for abilities, if you have a racial bonus, put that in Dex, and then I'm just going to max Dex out, going all the way up to 20, which is as high as we can go. That gives us a +5. Now, it doesn't give us too many ability points to go on with, but all we need for this build, the only other attribute we need, is strength. So if we put everything else in strength, that gets us to 15, which is a +2. But if we can, and we've got 1 ability point left over, if we can get just 2 more ability points, we can make that 16, and it's a +3. So you could look at taking points out of intelligence, but that reduces the number of skills you get. I could take some points out of wisdom, but that would reduce my will save, which is already, you know, poor as a fighter. I could take it out of charisma, which would affect skills like persuasion. But I start off with 10 hit points, plus the extra 1 that they don't tell you about, so 11. So I'm going to get 10 hit points per level, but I'm not going to be in the front line. I'm an archer. I'm not going to use any other weapon but my bow. So I don't expect to be in the front line, but I can also wear as heavy armor as I want. So I recommend that you could take the 2 points out of Constitution, and then you've got enough points there to go up to 16, giving you a +3. That means that you'll get 9 points of hit points per level. You'll be fine. It's not going to be a problem at all. Skill points, my recommendations for this build is, because you've got a fairly high strength, take athletics. You've got a very high dexterity, so take any of those dex ones, but I'd probably pick mobility. If you didn't want to take that, I would take trickery, because then you'd have someone who could do a backup to open chests if your Lindsay or whatever thief you have can't do it. And then put your last point wherever you want. But me, because I'm going to be the Baron, I generally like to put it in persuasion. But perception would be a good option as well. You want to be able to find things, but you're not going to be in the front rank, so maybe perception's not such a big deal. So that's abilities and skill points out of the way. So choosing our feats now. The obvious choices at first level are going to be point blank shot and then precise shot. So point blank shot will give you a +1 to your attack bonus to any ranges up to 30 feet, which I'm not even sure if you can have combat at greater than 30 feet in the game. So you'll probably always get that. And precise shot removes the -4 penalties to your attack rolls when attacking into melee. So you definitely want those two straight up. That gets rid of all of the, gives you a little bonus and gets rid of all the negatives. Now, from there, here is my layout of what I'm recommending you do at each level. So at level 2, you have weapon focus longbow. So this will give you your weapon focus in longbow, and that gives you a +1 to hit. At level 3, take rapid shot. This will give you a -2 to hit, but it gives you 1 extra attack per round. So now at early game, you're getting 2 attacks per round rather than 1. And at the end game, rather than getting 4 attacks per round, you're getting 5. Level 4, take weapon specialization in longbow. You can only take this as a fighter. This is where this is a good feat that you only get as a fighter. Gives you +2 to damage. No conditions on it, nothing like that. It just increases your damage straight up by +2. At level 5, take deadly aim. So this is a feat that goes up incrementally. So it starts as -1 to hit and +2 to damage, and then every 4 levels, I think it is, the bonus goes up the same. So the bonuses and penalties. So by the time you're at level 20, you will be -5 to hit, but you will be +10 to damage. And that -5 to hit is a little bit nasty, but you'll see in a minute that this works really well. At level 6, I recommend taking Mini Shot. So what this will do is the first arrow that you fire in a round will actually be 2 arrows rather than 1. And if your roll to hit hits, then both arrows hit. So you're basically essentially, and then you just roll 2 different damage values. So it doesn't mean you double your damage, but it means you've got 2 arrows that have hit rather than 1. In that first attack, you get the potential to do 2 lots of damage. If 1 crits, they both crit, I believe. I could be wrong there, but just that extra arrow, extra lot of damage that you can do per round. So you'll just turn that on and pretty much leave that running from then on, and you'll be good. Because I think it's around level 6 that you get your second attack per round anyway. So that means that with Rapid Shot, suddenly you're doing 3 attacks, but you're doing 4 arrows worth of damage if they all hit, of course. Level 7, take Clustered Shots. So what this does is if you've got multiple attacks at the same target in the one round, it adds up all the damage first before it calculates any damage reduction. So this is not something you're going to need straight away at level 7. You could leave this till a little bit later because you're not... But the later you leave it, the more chance you're going to have that you don't have it when you need it. Because higher level opponents may have some forms of damage reduction where, take for example a werewolf, for example, or any sort of were animals, were rats, werewolves, those sorts of things, because they're resistant to normal weapons, they have a damage reduction, so that even if you do hit them, it reduces a lot of the damage. This will help to overcome that because all of the damage will be calculated first, and then the damage reduction happens in one go rather than damage reduction on each arrow. At level 8, I would take Greater Weapon Focus in your longbow. Again, this is only something that you can take as a fighter, and this gives you a further +1 to hit. At level 9, I would take Critical Focus. This improves your chance to crits. This one again is not as important at this level. Longbows don't crit very well because they have a small crit range. This will improve that crit range, but while crits are going to be nice for this build, you're really building this to do the most damage with normal attacks, and then crits just are the icing on the cake. Okay. At level 10, you can take Point Blank Master. This is something that only fighters can take. Now this one's not essential at this point. It's a nice to have, but what it does is it negates the attack of opportunity that happens if someone engages you in melee and you try and shoot them with the bow. Okay. Level 11 is taking Improved Precise Shot. So this one again is another one of those that don't give you bonuses to attack or damage. What this one does is it reduces the effect of cover. So if there is an opponent that is behind something that provides some partial cover to them, this greatly reduces that. I think it's only if they're invisible that they get any sort of cover bonus. Level 12, you can take Greater Weapon Specialization in the longbow. Again, this is another feat that's only available to fighters, and this will give you another +2 to damage. So at level 4, we saw the Weapon Specialization longbow. Now at level 12, we're seeing the Greater Weapon Specialization, and both of them give you +2 to damage. At level 13, you can take Penetrating Strike for the longbow. Again, this is only a fighter-based skill. This one allows you to bypass damage reduction, so much like we said with Clustered Shot, where you could calculate all the damage first before applying damage reduction, this one just bypasses the first 5 points of damage reduction. Okay, so if as I said, as the example I had before, if you had a were-rat, a werewolf, something like that that had damage reduction, if it had 8 points of damage reduction, for example, then when you were using penetrating strike, it would only be 5 points. At level 14, you can take staggering critical, or basically any of those critical feats that allow you to apply an effect on the critical. I like the staggering critical, but you could look at any of the other ones. There's multiples of them out there. Have a look at them all, see which one you think is the best. There's blinding, there's sickening, there's staggering, there's fatiguing. I think it's called tiring, but it does fatigue, things like that. Level 15, take improved critical. So this improves your critical range so that your longbow can now crit on 19 or 20 rather than just on the 20. At level 16, take greater penetrating strike. So as we saw before, we had penetrating strike that removed 5 points of damage reduction. Greater penetrating strike removes another 5 points of damage reduction. This is only for fighters again. So now, once you've got that at level 16, you can bypass 10 points of damage reduction, which is really handy. Level 17, you can take critical mastery. Now what this does is allow you to apply multiple critical feats. So normally you can just do, say, improved critical, but you couldn't incorporate staggering critical into that at the same time. This critical mastery allows you to do an improved crit and also do a staggering at the same time, for example. But again, as I said, this is not really a huge critical build, but you've got the ability to take that at this point, so that's what I would recommend. Now, the last couple here I'm going to recommend: at level 18, take Vital Strike, and at level 19, take Greater Vital Strike. Now, these are okay abilities, but they're not that great. So what they do is Vital Strike, you can only do a single attack per round with each of these. So by the time you're up here at level 18, 19, and then even level 20, you're eventually going to have 4 attacks per round. If you use Vital Strike or Greater Vital Strike, though, you only get a single attack per round. But once you've got Vital Strike, you do a single attack, but you roll for damage twice, much like you did with Many Shot. But you do a single attack, roll for damage twice, add the values together, and then apply all the other bonuses. Which I'll show you the calculations in a sec to see how good that is. It's not that great, which is why I've left it till the end. Greater Vital Strike, it allows you to take 4 damage rolls. But it's still a single attack per round rather than the 4 that you would normally have at this point, or 3 or 4, whatever it is. And you're doing 4 times the damage, and then you apply bonuses to it. And it doesn't really scale if you get a critical either, so be aware of that. Level 20 is really up to you. Take whatever you want. Of course, throughout all of this, if there's any of these sort of ones that you don't want, like the Vital Strikes, for example, replace them with something else. And you can throw some in earlier, but I'm trying to push everything up as soon as possible so that you get those damage bonuses and things like that as early as you can to max them out. So if we now look at, if we're at level 20, okay, we would get 4 attacks per round. But because we've got Many Shot and Rapid Shot, we'd actually essentially get 6 attacks. Well, it would be 5 attacks, but we'd be doing 6 arrows worth of damage. Okay, so that makes it greater than the Greater Vital Strike, and each arrow gets all of its bonuses, whereas in Greater Vital Strike, you add up all 4 normal arrow values and then add all the bonuses to it. Okay, so for those 6 attacks, what do we get as far as bonuses? So our attacks to bonus, well, Point Blank Shot has given us a +1, and Weapon Focus has given us a +1, but Rapid Shot has given us a -2. And then by level 20, Deadly Aim has given us a -5. But the one thing we haven't mentioned is, as I said before, we get Weapon Training as a fighter. That Weapon Training, by the time you're at level 20, is giving you a +4 to the first weapon that you've selected. So that's almost overcome the Deadly Aim, and then our Greater Weapon Focus gives us another +1. So it means that by level 20, we've actually got no bonus or penalty at all to our attack. So this means that if we also buffed our dex at each time we got a new bonus to our ability points, which you get, I think it's every 4 levels, if we added that to our starting dex of 20, we'd be up to 25 by the time we got to level 20, and that would mean we were plus 7. So at level 20, our first base attack bonus is 20, giving us an attack value of plus 27. That means, assuming that a roll of 1 is always a critical miss, that we would be able to hit armor classes of 29 to 47 at level 20, and possibly higher if you're using a magical weapon or you've got magical equipment that increases your dexterity even higher. But that's the sort of AC range that you're able to target by level 20, which seems like it would be fairly comparable to what you would get as, say, a two-handed weapon fighter or any other sort of fighting build that you might do. Damage-wise, you're not going to do as much damage as a two-handed sword, but let's look at that. So damage. You have 1 point of point-blank shot extra damage that you're getting. You've got your weapon training, as we mentioned before, gives us a +4 bonus to hit, but it also gives us a +4 bonus to damage by the time you're at level 20. You've got weapon specialization and greater weapon specialization, both giving you +2s. And then deadly aim, which was giving us a -5 to hit, is giving us a +10 to damage. So this means we're getting a +19 to damage. And then we have to take our strength into account. So we gave ourselves a strength of 16, which is a bonus of +3. Using a composite longbow, we multiply that by 1.5, which gives us +4. And because it rounds down, unfortunately. So that would mean, with the 19, that we would be doing +23 damage. So a 1 to 8 composite longbow that normally does 1 to 8 of damage would now do 24 to 31 points of damage per hit. Minimum of 24. Okay, so that's pretty good. Which means that if we had all 6 attacks that we mentioned before, or all 5 attacks but 6 arrows worth of damage, we would be doing anywhere from 0 to 186 points of damage per round, excluding criticals. Okay, and due to our greater penetrating strike, we would be doing at least 50 points of damage reduction bypass, so 10 points per attack. Right, so we could be bypassing up to 60 points of damage reduction, up to 50 points of damage reduction through the course of that round. Vital Strike and Greater Vital Strike, though, really don't give you anywhere near that. So you get the 1 attack with Greater Vital Strike, but you roll 4 die, add up the values, so that would be a maximum of 32 points of damage, and then you add in all the bonuses. What it means is if that arrow hits, you're going to do between 27 and 55 points of damage, which is okay, but that's only 1 hit, whereas, you know, we saw the best case scenario without using Greater Vital Strike, we could do up to 186 points of damage. So that's a lot more if all 5 hits get through. So that's the fighter build. Now, could you do this as a non-fighter? Well, yeah, you could. You know, if you did it as a ranger or as a paladin, for example, what would you lose out on? Well, you're not going to get some of these fighter-specific feats. So you're not going to get weapon training. You're not going to get greater weapon focus. So the best that you're going to be able to get, you're going to get a penalty to hit, because you're going to get deadly aim, which is going to take -5, and then all the other bonuses from point blank shot, weapon focus, and rapid shot are going to cancel out, and you're going to end up with a -5 to hit at level 20. So that means you're not going to be able to hit quite as high an armor class range as you could before. So only say about 24 to 42, which, you know, it's still not too bad, but not as high as you could as a fighter. Damage is also going to be less. So rather than doing extra 19 points of damage plus your strength, making it 23, you're instead going to do 11 points of damage plus your strength, making it 15. So it means you're going to do between 16 and 23 points of damage rather than the 24 to 31 that you could do previously. The total damage per round would depend on the class that you would be doing. So, for example, Rangers and Paladins, who still do get their 6 attacks per round, but they would only do about 0 to 138 points of damage rather than 186. So you've lost, you know, 50 points of damage there at the high end, at the maximum end. Eldritch Archers, though, would be a little bit harder to work out, because the Eldritch Archer, in the long run, even though you get much less feats to do this with, you would still be able to get point blank shot, weapon focus, rapid shot, and deadly aim, which are the main ones that are giving you the bonuses to damage, right? With all of those, you're only getting 3 attacks per round at level 20 as an Eldritch Archer. But the 4th attack that you get would be, well, maybe 5 attacks with rapid shot, but you do get an extra attack, which is your spell strike. And at level 20, the highest level spell that I could find that you could get, that you could use with this, is Hellfire Ray. Now, because it's a ray, you can shoot a maximum of 3 rays with this spell. Each of those can be associated with an arrow. And because you get 3 attacks per round, that potentially should be able to work, assuming this is how it works in the game. This is what I've read online. I haven't confirmed it yet. But if that's the case, your normal arrows would do between 0 and 92 points of damage, because there's just 3 of them. But the Hellfire Rays on top of that are potentially going to do between 0 and 270 points of damage. The caveat is you probably can't do quite the 92 points of damage with this, because you wouldn't necessarily be able to get your strength that high as an Eldritch Archer, because you've got to put some points into intelligence or drop your dexterity back a little bit. So you might actually be able to still do this. You might not be able to hit quite as high an armor class, but you could put some extra points into strength up front when you first build it, so that you still had 16 strength, and then you would do up to 92 points of damage with your arrows, but then your spells would do a further 270, which would blow out everything that the other archers could do. But I haven't fully tested this as an Eldritch Archer to see if you can get all of that at level 20, because I haven't got through to that point yet. But as a pure archer, this is the build that I would go with. You know, you're doing some fairly significant amounts of damage, up to 5 attacks per round, 6 arrows worth of damage, up to 186 points of damage before you do any criticals. Doing a lot of damage bypass so that you can get through heavy armors, and you'll lose all of that. You don't get any of that damage reduction bypass if you don't use a straight up fighter for this. If you use an Eldritch Archer or a Paladin or anything like that, you won't necessarily get that. Now, the Eldritch Archer can take some fighter classes, some fighter feats when they get up into higher levels, but only half of their Magus level can they use to calculate that. So you might be able to get Penetrating Strike, which gives you 5 points of damage reduction, but you definitely wouldn't be able to get Greater Penetrating Strike because the level required for that is too high. So anyway, that's my archery build for just a straight up archer, straight up damage, No special abilities, no spells, no nothing. Give it a shot, see what you think of it. I've played through a little bit with this through the tutorial mission and a little bit beyond, and I quite like it. It because you start with that dexterity of 20, you start off with a fairly good bonus. You hit fairly well. You don't do huge amounts of damage, but you hit fairly well and fairly often. And then as you go up, you'll get all those feats which start increasing your damage little bit by little bit, until by the end you're doing some pretty significant amounts of damage. So I hope you enjoyed this. Please let me know in comments what you think of this build. Like and share, that is always very helpful, and I'll see you on the next videos. Thanks guys, bye.